Welcome everyone to Lab 4 of Nonprofit Financial Management. For those of you who normally attend Thursday's lab or just want to review the lab exercises, this video is for you. Today we'll be going through 3 exercises that will help you complete your second budgeting assignment. We'll first review elements of an administrative budget, then merge program and administrative budgets, and finally, perform a simple cost allocation exercise to determine the true cost of running each program. As will be discussed later, it's important for you to note that the true cost of running a program may be significantly more than what the direct program cost may suggest. By now, you should already have completed 3 program budgets for the nonprofit XYZ. Program 1, the tutoring program, was already completed for you and given as an example. Program 2, the child care program, was partially completed, and you had a chance to fill in the rest of it during the previous lab. Program 3, the Parent Advocacy Program, was assigned for you to create this past week. So by this point, you've had a chance to think through various expenses required to operate a program. In other words, you've had a chance to consider direct program costs, which can be exclusively identified with one particular program or activity. Now let's take a look at the administrative budget. The administrative budget is comprised of indirect costs, also known as administrative costs or overhead, that touch more than one program. These costs are extremely important for the overall operations of an organization, but they are not usually very popular for 2 reasons. One reason is that they add to the true cost of programs, and programs typically don't like to show higher expenses than what they claim on their program budgets. Another reason is that people who give money to organizations often associate administrative costs with paperwork and activities that are not visibly linked to the mission, program, or service to which they are committed. Thus, donors have a hard time accepting that their money isn't necessarily being used to buy food for the homeless, but instead being spent on a new cartridge for the office printer. Now, the administrative budget that we've created for this lab includes personnel costs and OTPS costs. OTPS standing for Other Than Personnel Service. Under Personnel, you see all the full-time administrative and fundraising staff whose responsibilities and time divide across several programs. The assistant here, for example, may handle the administrative duties of the executive director and development officer, as well as that of program directors. The fringe benefits for these administrative personnel are also under this category. Under the OTPS, you find a number of different categories, including consultants, supplies, equipment, insurance, rents, utilities, and other costs that touch several programs. The part-time accountant listed under consultants may look after the books of the entire organization. The printer and copy unit may be used for printing brochures for all 3 programs, and the rent, as specified here in the assumptions, is based on approximately 50 square feet per full employee at $50 per square foot. Though there are no right or wrong answers when it comes to creating administrative budgets, the important thing to consider is what kind of support you'll need to manage your budget and ensure that your programs can run successfully. You should also consider how many staff members you have in total, the size of your budget, and how each program is expected to generate revenue. If a program is to rely strictly on fundraising, which might be the case for the Parent Advocacy Program, perhaps you need to hire a full-time fundraiser, or allocate the majority of the executive director's time to fundraising efforts. On the other hand, if a program is to be partially subsidized by the government, which may be the case with the child care program, you might want to hire a part-time or full-time grant writer. By now, you should have a good idea of what considerations go into creating an administrative budget. Let's move on to the next tab, Allocation Expenses, to merge this budget with the program budgets. To merge the budgets, you will begin by entering in the total direct costs for each program in 2013 and 2014. The easiest way to do this is to link the cells in this worksheet to the total direct costs that correspond for each program budget in the other worksheets. We'll start by looking at the the total direct costs for the tutoring program in 2013 by going up to the cell B11, pressing equals, and going over to Program 1, the tutoring, and looking at the total direct cost for 2013. We'll do the same for 2014. Pressing equals, going over to the worksheet of Program 1, looking at the total direct costs for 2014 as we see here, clicking enter. The same will go for the child care program and the parent advocacy program. The only thing to note here is that since you were only assigned to create a program budget for 2014 for the parent advocacy program, you can simply put 0 in the cell designated for 2013. Keep in mind some of your numbers might look different than the ones presented here. This is okay. As you enter in the total cost for each year, you'll also notice that the totals in column D automatically populate. This is not the case in your worksheet right now, but you can also enter in formulas to automatically populate your cells. Now to enter in the indirect costs, you must now turn to your newly created administrative budget. You'll notice that each category in this table here corresponds to each category in the administrative budget. To enter in the indirect costs, sum up the subtotals for each category in your administrative budget and link the cells accordingly. I'll demonstrate how to do this for personnel costs in 2013 and then let you do the rest of it on your own. Alright, now you have successfully merged your program and administrative budgets. So you can see a complete budget of nonprofit XYZ's expenses for the years 2013 and 2014. Let's move on to steps 2 through 4 to see how you can use this information to allocate costs and discover what the true costs of running each program amount to. So let's look at step 2. Step 2 asks you to use the total direct costs for each program to calculate what percentage of the total program costs each program comprises in 2014. First, enter in the direct program costs for each program in column B. Then, in column C, divide each direct program cost by the total direct program expenses. So for example, for tutoring program, you would say equals the 2014 direct program cost divided by the total direct program expenses. You'd see the same goes for the child care and the parent advocacy. Now this note here says that this should total 100% of the program budgets combined for 2014. To check this, simply sum. And you get to 100%. So you see here in this specific budget, the tutoring program accounts for 47% of the total program costs, the child care program accounts for 23% of the total program costs, and the parent advocacy program accounts for approximately 30%. Keep in mind that this exercise only shows you one way of allocating costs. However, this is not the only way to determine the true costs of operating programs. Rather than assessing programs based on the size of their budgets, organizations might also allocate costs based on the number of participants or the amount of space occupied by each program. Now let's move on to step 3. Indirect costs may be allocated in a number of ways. For this exercise though, you should assume that 75% of the indirect costs are allocated to programs. So here, in this cell, just calculate 75% of the total costs in 2014. Alright, last step. Step 4 asks you to find the true costs for operating each program in 2014. You'll first enter in the direct program costs for each program. And this you found in step 1, but you also have it here in step 2. To find out how much of the indirect costs each program must assume, multiply the percentage of the total program costs that each program takes up by the total amount of indirect costs allocated to programs. So for the tutoring program, you would multiply the 47% by this value. Once you've completed step 4, you can look at the totals in column D here, and you now see that each program's true costs of operating are significantly larger than what the program budgets alone revealed, as you see here. As Professor Holloway showed in class using the example of St. ABC's Church, calculating the true costs of a program can often allow you to identify the problem areas of an organization. Now that you've seen how to create your own administrative budget, merge it with the program budgets, and allocate costs, go ahead and complete the budgeting assignment number 2 and submit it to your TA by midnight on Sunday, October 7th. This concludes Lab 4 of Nonprofit Financial Management.